We're going to call the meeting to order. We have a quorum. We're going to have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Chris. Everybody stand.
Yes, please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Chris.
You're welcome.
First item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve? Riza, motion. Ira seconds. Any changes, corrections? Seeing none, they stand approved. Approval of the minutes for the January 16th, 2024 regular board meeting. Motion to approve. Riza. Second, Ira. Any corrections, deletions? Seeing none, they stand approved as. And then item 4B, February 2nd, 2024, agenda prep meeting. Motion, Chris moves, Riza seconds. Any discussion, any changes? Seeing none, we find those approved. Report of the chair. So the only remarks I have is I want to thank Ralph Engel for his time and years on the board. He is resigning as of February 29th at midnight. And we thank him for all of his service. And then he has a well-deserved rest coming up. Because he is resigning, we will have a vacancy on the board. That vacancy will be posted March 1st, the day after his resignation. There will be 2 weeks for people to apply for that position, and that will close on March 15th. And then we'll be doing the interviews and that sometime after March 18th. And so that's just to give everybody a heads up that if you want to apply for a director's position, to put in your resumes and put in your application the first 2 weeks of March. And with that, I have no further comments. We'll open the forum for the members. 3 minutes per speaker. At this time, members only may address the board of directors regarding items not on the agenda and within the jurisdiction of this board of directors. The board reserves the right to limit the total amount of time allotted for the open forum to 30 minutes. A member may speak only once during the forum. Speakers may not give their time to other people. No audio or video recording by attendees, and no rude or threatening comments. Members can join the meeting by joining the Zoom, which is on the agenda packet, or by calling 669-900-6833, or email meeting@vmsinc.org to have your messages read during the open forum. At this time, do we have speakers from the
Yes,
audience?
we have one in person and then one that I'll read. The first is for Renee Greenman.
Hello, everybody. Good morning. My name is Renee Greenman. I live at 3101 Unit D, Via Serena North. I moved into this unit in April of 2023, and what I didn't realize was my front square sidewalk that I go outside my door to is a common area, and residents and guests walk through it, where we leave our mat, the shoes, my mailbox is there, and I wanted to ask you board members if I can get the sidewalk moved. I drew a picture of it further out. So it would start, so you're coming in, it's hard to describe, but here's my manor number. The sidewalk is here. Right now, the sidewalk goes right to my front door and then around the property. What I would like to do is have it picked up and go just around it and meet it at the same spot where it is now. I don't know if I'm making myself clear, I'm a little nervous,
We'll
but,
we'll probably have to go out and actually look at it.
Right.
And we can get maintenance and construction to actually look at that. So we'll forward that to them
okay,
for their advice on how it's set up.
okay. I
Sound
know
good?
there's a tree there, and I don't know if the tree has to be removed, but that's up to you guys. But I've had packages taken, and it's just really annoying, and, you know, it's not a safety thing that people are going right in front of my front door and then walking around it, and that's how the sidewalk is now. So, do I submit all this to you?
Actually, I'll just take the information, Tim and
Okay.
see, and we'll go out and look at it
Okay.
and see if we can resolve it.
All right, I don't have to leave this or anything?
Yeah, we'd like to have a copy of it if
Yeah,
if you
I'm
want
going
to
to
give it
leave all my
to.
information with her.
Yeah,
And I appreciate it very much. Thank you for taking the time to listen.
you're welcome. And we have another one.
Yes, so I'm going to read one that was sent to us by Chris Collins. And I can take that. Thank you. Should put my name on it, Manor. I can write your name on it, no problem. Thank you very much. From Chris Collins, Manor 3306Q. And she stated, I'm here to provide an update on the work of the Foundation of Laguna Woods Village on behalf of residents experiencing temporary financial crisis. Managing your digital assets. You have selected an estate lawyer and thought about the details of your trust, but is that all you need to do? Actually, estate planning is a continuum, an ongoing process that begins while you are alive. While we hesitate to think about it as we age, we also need a plan for the possibility of incapacity, and we need to think about more than our financial assets. Who will manage such things as your social media accounts like Facebook, airplane miles, personal records, many photos, in other words, the many things stored digitally on your computer or on the internet if you're physically or mentally unable to? According to Debbie Dotson, the village's very own talk tech guru, planning for digital assets upon incapacitation is of paramount importance in today's digital age. As our lives become increasingly intertwined with technology, we must recognize the significance of safeguarding our digital presence and ensuring that our digital assets are properly managed in the event of incapacity, just like we would any other assets, and make that plan. The latest episode of the Foundation of Laguna Woods series, Planning for the Inevitable, provides practical guidance on how to manage and protect your digital assets in the event of incapacity. Such planning will relieve potential stress and burden on ourselves and our families. This episode aired on Village Television each Saturday in December at 12 noon during the month. If you want to view this broadcast on your own schedule, it is also available on the Foundation website, foundationoflagunawoodsvillage.org, under a special tab, Planning for the Inevitable. This website section includes the YouTube links for this broadcast and our earlier ones on advanced directives and estate planning. It also has additional information on managing digital assets. If you have any questions about this topic or the upcoming broadcast, please contact the Foundation at 949-268-2246 or foundation@comline.com. For more information about the Foundation, please go to our website at foundationoflagunawoodsvillage.org. Please note that donations can always be made using PayPal or credit card on the Foundation website. And that is all for open forum.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
And moving on, we're at number 8, department head updates. We have a presentation by Dan Yost, risk manager, insurance overview. Morning, Dan.
Good morning. So this morning I'd like to take some time and go over a presentation we've done on the insurance for Third Laguna Hills Mutual. And this is an overview of all the insurance that Third Laguna Hills Mutual has. I like to do this overview in a way that you would read the operating statements, where if you look at the operating statement, you have hazard and liability insurance, property insurance, and then you have executive liability insurance. So we'll start with the line item of hazard and liability insurance. If we go to the next slide here. Hazard and liability at the top here has 3 different areas of coverage. And it starts with the general liability coverage, and that is the catch-all for any kind of trips and falls in the community in Third Laguna Hills Mutual if they get sued over those instances. That policy is $1 million occurrence and $2 million aggregate for civil code. And I have a slide for civil code to show that we are following civil code. We have to have this policy in place. So it's a $0 deductible, and you can see the premium there of $475,000. After that, after the general liability, we have an umbrella policy in place that is the excess layer beyond the general liability, and that umbrella policy is for $10 million, and then there's excess policies up into $55 million. So you'll see a limit of $55 million right there, and that premium is $463,000 for those additional layers and extra insurance. And then last but not least, in hazard and liability insurance is crime insurance. That is mandated. That is a mandated line to have per civil code, and I'll go over the civil code, but it basically says you need to have 3 months assessments and the balance in reserves. Not in the disaster fund, but what's in your replacement reserve. So that policy is a limit of $31.5 million, and that's dictated by civil code, and then the premium on that is $142,000. If we want to move down to property insurance, in the next line here, we've discussed property insurance quite a bit. If you remember, I was here in June, and I gave a presentation on the market outlook of property insurance, and it was not good. We're seeing rising premiums since 2018. If you remember the map of the United States, and it showed all the catastrophes happening, and especially wildfire in California is a major concern. Now, the policies for Third are a blanket property insurance for fire and special forms covering common and community area buildings. Well, what does that mean? Blanket means it covers all the buildings up into a $255 million limit. Special form means everything is covered except for exclusions. The main exclusion in the policy is earthquake, and as you can see, we also have an earthquake policy for Third Laguna Hills Mutual. Now, if there was a fire after an earthquake, that would be covered under the policy, but for earthquake shock itself, there is a separate policy in place because that's not covered under the normal property insurance policy. That $255 million limit was dictated off of a probable maximum loss of a 1 in 10,000 year occurrence, which is the most catastrophic wildfire event that can occur in Third, and that's where you get that limit of $255 million with a $100,000 deductible. Last thing I want to add on property insurance, it is per occurrence, meaning you could have multiple occurrences in the year. If you have a fire loss of up to $255 million or $250 million, fully covered, besides that $100,000 deductible. If you have a second one in the same year, another $250 million event, there's insurance coverage. It's not an aggregate amount, it's a per occurrence amount. So we can move on to executive liability insurance on the next slide. That is your D&O insurance, and that is a $10 million limit. We've done some modeling on that to come to the $10 million limit for D&O insurance. Directors and officers, one item I want to point out on this is I get questions a lot on who isn't insured. What's any past, present, or future director, officer, trustee, employee, and advisor is covered under the D&O insurance, and that deductible is large. It's $150,000 retention on the policy. If we go to the next slide, we can see where we're at with insurance, and it's off of the December financials here. We can see that hazard and liability is slightly unfavorable. That's coming slightly from general liability and some crime mixed in there for that slightly unfavorable variance. There's a favorable variance in D&O insurance, and then there's a favorable variance with property insurance. Although it is a high premium, we did budget for anticipated increase. But when we were able to renew at $255 million, that brought the price down a little bit. So we see a favorable variance there as well. If we go to the last slide, we'll look at the Davis-Sterling Civil Code. And these are the 3 civil codes that we need to follow. One is at least $1 million in D&O insurance. And if the community is over 100 units, which you're over 100 units, of course, you need to have at least $1 million in D&O insurance. You have $10 million. The next one is for general liability insurance. You need to have at least $3 million, and you have $55 million. And then the last one is the one I said before for crime insurance. It's 3 months assessment and the balance in reserves. So we're following those 3 civil codes. I can take questions at this time.
Does anybody have any questions? Any directors? Seeing none, thank you, Dan.
Okay, thank you very much.
And moving on to item 9, the CEO report.
Thank you, Vice President Cook, honorable members of the board. This morning, I'd like to start my presentation with an update from the VMS board, and that is that the members of VMS, Third, United, and GRF recently voted to allow residents to be eligible for full-time employment. This will be implemented in the coming months as VMS staff and the board of directors develop the accompanying personnel policy to administer this. So this is a change from the current policy that allows residents only to work full-time or part-time in the village. They will be able to work full-time in the village moving forward. Now I'd like to continue my update by sharing information about assessments in Third Mutual. We previously shared this chart that is on screen, which shows that from 2014 to 2024, Third assessments increased by approximately $204, or 53.2%, which represents an average annual change of 3.5%. Combined with the GRF portion of the monthly assessment, the total basic assessment increased by $208, or 34.3%, over this 10-year period for an average change of 2.6%. For reference, from 2013 to 2023, the Consumer Price Index increased by 35.3%, or 3.1%. So our assessment increases are below the CPI. On the screen before you is an infographic that we previously shared that shows how Third Mutual's monthly assessment is spent on monthly costs, which include $588 for Third expenses and $228 for GRF common use, amenities, and services. Today I want to share a cost breakdown of various 55-plus communities that compare average basic assessments, common use amenities that are offered, total assessments, community locations, home values, and much more. This data has been shared in What's Up in the Village and is available on the Village website under the News tab. The data is telling favorably for Laguna Woods Village. Third and United Mutuals together are by far the largest representation with 12,425 homes, compared to the next largest community that has half the total number of homes and a basic assessment that is more than twice that of United's and almost twice that of Third Mutual's. Also consider the following when reviewing this chart. Compare Third and United's total average basic assessments to other communities that are significantly smaller and offer far fewer amenities. Also compare the number of homes in each community to put landscaping and maintenance costs into greater perspective. Also, certain utilities such as trash, water, sewage, and basic cable are included in Third and United's total assessments, whereas they may not be in other communities. The table on the screen before you now shows some examples of our sister communities and how Third and United compares to these sister communities. Specifically, you will see that Third Mutual has a lower assessment than Rossmore Walnut Creek and Leisure World, Maryland. I would also like to switch gears and touch on an important meeting that is coming up. Southern California Edison will present on its income graduated fixed pricing proposal that it submitted to the California Public Utilities Commission for consideration. And that presentation will be held tomorrow at the Laguna Woods City Council meeting. This is occurring at 2 p.m. at the Laguna Woods City Hall. The meeting will be broadcast live here in the Village on Channel 3 and live streamed by Zoom by the city. That Zoom information can be picked up on the Village, on the city website under their agenda. The proposal that SCE has submitted is available on its website at the address listed on the screen before you. Also in March, SCE will present 2 in-person and 4 remote public forums. You can view those via the internet or listen via the telephone. To comment, you can use your phone number, passcode, and the instructions shown on the screen below when it's your turn to speak. The remote meetings are held, or will be held on Tuesday, March 5th and Wednesday, March 20th at 2 and 6 p.m. And then the in-person meeting will be held March 20th at 2 and 6 p.m. at the Recreation Park Community Center in Long Beach. Additionally, there are other ways to comment on the Edison proposal, and these include addressing comments via email to the email address shown on the screen, www.cpuc.ca.gov/docket, or mailing comments to the CPUC at the address shown on the screen. And in either format, residents are encouraged to use the proceeding number, which is R220-7005, and this will direct it to the right audience for review. I would also like to provide a brief update on the Clubhouse 1 project, please. Renovations are slated to begin in early March when the clubhouse closes. Nearly 100% of rental groups have been reallocated to alternate venues. I want to thank our recreation staff for their dedicated work to relocate all those reservations to other facilities. They've done an outstanding job. Also, bocce and pétanque will remain open during construction. To offset the closure of the Clubhouse 1 Fitness Center, expanded community center fitness hours will begin on Monday, March 4th. The hours will now be 6 a.m. to 9 p.m., and on weekends, the fitness center here in the community center will be open from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. The Clubhouse 5 Fitness Center will be open daily from 5:30 a.m. to 9 p.m. Fitness center staff will provide users information on free gym memberships in the area that may be available on your health insurance plans, depending on eligibility, and personal training locations are currently being finalized. As Clubhouse 1 is the transportation hub for our fixed route bus system, transportation will be establishing an alternate transportation hub in the parking lot east of the Village Library and History Center. This allows the fixed route bus service to continue without modifying the schedule, and parking for Village Library and History Center visitors will remain. And lastly, for some fun, especially on a rainy day, the 2024 Laguna Woods Arts Association exhibit is now underway here in the community center. There are more than 170 works of art displayed along the community center, first and third floor hallways, as well as here in the boardroom. This includes acrylics, mixed media, oil, watercolors, and other mediums. And now between now and Friday, March 1st, visitors may pick up a ballot from the concierge desk here in the community center and vote for their favorite artwork, which will be announced at a later date. Thank you very much. That's my update this
Thank you,
morning.
Siobhan. Moving on to the consent calendar. All matters listed under the consent calendar are recommended for action by committees.
I have a question for the CEO.
Oh, if it's
If
possible, go ahead.
I was wondering how we allocating or reallocating staff that were dedicated to Clubhouse 1, what we're going to do with them.
Sure, they're being moved to other facilities. For instance, the expanded hours at the fitness centers will be covered by those staffs. The extended hours at other facilities that will be picking up reservations, for example, Clubhouse 6, will absorb those extra staff. So they'll be plugged in where we have additional hours.
Thank you.
Okay. Again, all matters listed on the consent calendar are recommended for action by committees and will be enacted by the board in one motion. In the event an item is removed from the consent calendar by members of the board, such item shall be the subject of further discussion and action by the board. Do I get a motion to approve the consent calendar? Chris moves, Reza seconds. Okay. With seeing that, any objections? Seeing none, we'll move on from the consent calendar. We're going to item 11A, unfinished business. And Chris, can you read the resolution on that item?
Sorry. Okay. Replacement toilet at Manor transfer. Whereas on January 19th, 2016, the Board of Directors adopted the replacement toilet at Manor transfer requirement to set forth requirements for the replacement of all non-compliant toilets prior to the date any record fee title to a manor is transferred. And whereas the Manor Alterations Committee has recognized the need to reevaluate the replacement toilet at Manor transfer requirement and determined that in an effort to expedite these real estate transactions, that such requirement be enforced by the City of Laguna Woods at the time the member possesses the required building permit and should be rescinded in its entirety. Now therefore be it resolved February 20th, 2024, the Board of Directors of this corporation hereby rescinds Resolution 03-16-07, adopted January 19, 2016, and resolve further that a mutual consent will not be required. Instead, the member will be required to submit and comply with the online no-fee toilet replacement form to Manor Alterations. Note that this form only applies to the replacement of existing toilets. Relocations and new installations follow the normal mutual consent process. Resolve further that the officers and agents of this corporation are hereby authorized on behalf of the corporation to carry out the purpose of this resolution.
Can I get a motion to approve? Andy, motion, Moon, second. Any discussion before we go to a vote? Seeing none, all in favor? Approved unanimously. Moving on to 11B. Chris, can you read the resolution for that?
Will do. Elimination of Manor Alteration Conformance Deposit Fee. Whereas the Architectural Controls and Standards Committee recognizes the need to amend manor alteration fees and create new manor alteration fees as necessary, and whereas the Architectural Controls and Standards Committee recognizes the need to cancel the conformance deposit fee. Now therefore be it resolved February 20th, 2024, the Board of Directors of this corporation hereby cancels Resolution 03-17-119, adopted October 20th, 2017, and resolve further that the officers and agents of this corporation are hereby authorized on behalf of the corporation to carry out this resolution.
Can I get a motion to approve? Riza, SK seconds. Any discussion on this? If not, all in favor? And do we get Jules' vote on that? It was on the screen last time.
If you can hear me, I vote in favor.
Okay, it's unanimous. Moving on to 11C. Chris, can you please read that resolution?
Revised Standard 21, patio slabs, walkways, and pavers. Whereas the Architectural Control and Standards Committee recognizes the need to amend standards and create new standards as necessary, and whereas the Architectural Control and Standards Committee recognize the need to update and clarify the construction methods and materials of patio slabs, walkways, and pavers. Now therefore be it resolved February 20th, 2024, that the Board of Directors of this corporation hereby adopts revisions and amendments to Standard 21 patio slabs and resolve further Resolution 03-18-44, adopted March 23, 2018, is hereby superseded and canceled, and resolve further that the officers and agents of this corporation are hereby authorized on behalf of the corporation to carry out this resolution.
Get a motion to approve? Riza moves, Moon seconds. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Waiting for the vote to show on the screen. It passes unanimously. Moving on to 12A, motion to approve the 2024 inspection of elections. Chris, can you please read the resolution?
Approve Inspector of Election Services. Whereas Civil Code Section 5110 requires an association to select an independent third party or parties as an inspector of elections. And whereas in accordance with Civil Code Section 5110, 5115, 5120, and 5125, the Inspector of Elections performs several tasks during an election, including but not limited to print and mail voter packages, inspect and tabulate ballots, and certify results. Now therefore, be it resolved, February 2024, that due to Unilex Corporation's agreement to conform to the criteria established in the specifications as Inspector of Election and its familiarity with the community, the Board of Directors of 3rd Laguna Hills Mutual hereby approves Unilex Corporation to perform Inspector of Election services for the 2024 election of directors, and resolve further that the officers and agents of this corporation are directed on behalf of the corporation to carry out this resolution.
Can I get a motion to approve? SK moves, Moon seconds. Any discussion? Any questions? With that, we'll take the vote. All in favor? Passes unanimously. Moving on to 12B. Chris, can you read the resolution?
Yes. Prohibition on accessory dwelling units, or ADU, and junior accessory dwelling units, or JADU. Whereas the 3rd Laguna Hills Mutual recognizes the need to amend policies and create new policies as necessary, and whereas the Mutual recognizes the need to revise the operating rules of the corporation and enact a new policy prohibiting accessory dwelling units and junior accessory dwelling units. And whereas the Mutual is a condominium project and each of the units located herein are condominium units. Therefore, California Civil Code Section 4751 does not apply to the Mutual and the condominium units located therein. And whereas this policy is designed to confirm that owners are not permitted to construct an ADU or JADU within their units located in the Mutual. In addition, garages shall not be converted to a dwelling structure, nor converted to be used for living purposes. Now therefore be it resolved on March 19, 2024, the Board of Directors of the Mutual hereby adopt the prohibition on ADU and JDU policy, and resolve further that the officers and agents of this corporation are hereby authorized on behalf of the corporation to carry out this resolution.
And motion to approve? Moon, second by Ira. Discussion? Riza?
Yeah, but my question is, this is in regard to permanent addition, or a temporary also covers this? A temporary accessibility, things like that, if they comes up. This is just for permanent addition or permanent construction type, or a temporary
It's only in
facility is going to
reference
be
to-
also prohibited.
It's only in reference to the state statute whereby ADUs and junior ADUs
Yeah.
are allowed, and they're not allowed in a condominium complex such as ours.
Even as a temporary.
Not for
Okay,
housing.
I just want to make sure that we understand if comes that it's just temporary, is also is not acceptable. Okay.
And again, this is just the first reading, so there's still 28 days for member review and comments.
Okay.
Andy, you had a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted some confirmation that in the existing policy for allowable uses, that we in fact have a prohibition about using garages for living space. It's not a stretch of imagination to think that somebody could surreptitiously, undercover, rent out a garage to live in. So do we have rules about that? We have penalties if they're caught?
Yeah, but that's also included in this policy.
Is it mentioned in here that
Yeah.
there's, okay, that, not a new one's constructed, but in fact, somebody rents the garage out for
Yeah,
a
it
bedroom?
specifically states in the resolution she read.
All right, thank you.
Okay, having that, we'll vote. All in favor? The pause is I'm waiting for it to show up on the screen, so. 12B, 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 12 Okay, unanimous, that passes. We'll go to item 12C, entertain a motion to approve the updated committee assignments. Do I get a motion to approve? SK moves, Ira seconds. Chris?
I have a correction
Okay,
on the management agreement ad hoc committee. SK, I believe, is our alternate.
okay, so we'll add that to it. With that, Ralph?
I have comment on, this is on the portion regarding to, the executive committee, well, it's actually, I thought it was in.
Oh, yeah, on the
second
executive
section,
committee, we need to put a line through you.
Yeah, we need to do that, and also on GRF committee appointments, that's what I was thinking of. But I get, that one's already covered.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, with those corrections?
There's two places with Ralph on the executive hearing
Yeah.
committee, on page 2 of 6.
Two of six.
Second group from the top, and the last group he's mentioned.
Oh, okay, so another line through Ralph for alternate on executive hearing committee. And with those corrections?
Is that effective on the 29th?
Yeah, it's effective March 1st.
Okay, all right.
We're getting all we can out of Ralph. He's going to be on the executive hearing committee on the 22nd and on the 29th. We're using him until his 11th hour. He doesn't get to just leave. Okay, with that, call for a vote. All in favor?
Jules, can we have your vote?
I vote against. Can you hear
Okay.
me?
I'm just waiting for a show
Okay,
up on the
thank
screen
you.
so public can
Did you
see.
get that?
Yeah, you're voting against?
Yes, I am.
Okay,
Oh, voting against?
thank you. I'm just updating the vote right now.
Did you vote against, Naira? They have you as a no.
Oop, sorry. There we go.
There we go. Now it's corrected. Passes 9-1. And now we will move on to item 12D, discuss reducing the percentage of leases allowed in third mutual. This is just an oral discussion. Would anybody like to start? Go ahead, Andy.
What we're doing?
Oh, it's just an oral discussion on possibly reducing the percentage of leases allowed in third. Right now, it's at 30% and possibly reducing it to 25%. So it's just an item that was put on the agenda for discussion. If anybody would like to make comments on that? Okay, Riza?
Yeah, according to the requirement by the state or by the, Sacramento, the minimum is 25%.
Yes.
And we went on top of that to 30%. We are sitting at 29 something today. So we are very close to that. We have a procedure, I think, in place that if it passes over 30%, what are the procedures for leasing or renting? Are we going to keep the same thing, or you think that need to be changed?
Well, part of the problem also is anybody who bought prior to a new cap being placed would still be under the jurisdiction of the old cap, because you can't take away people's property rights. So even if we are at 30% and it stops, it will only apply, if we lowered it to 25%, it would only apply to the purchases after that was implemented.
That if we
So-
change something.
Yeah.
If
and
we haven't,
Yeah,
if
but
we
we-
don't, then
But we changed to the 30% 3 years ago, I think it
Yeah.
was. And so by changing that, the other people that bought prior to that were still grandfathered. as attrition goes and people leave and people die, those people that still have the right to rent beyond the 30% cap diminish as time goes on.
Yep, so what I'm saying, there is a chance that we might go over 30% because of grandfathering. When you reach 30%, and then there are vacant unit that are grandfathering, we cannot stop them from renting. So we might even go over 30% if that situations happen.
Right, and it would only be through attrition that
Yeah.
it would be able to lower it lower. But if we set it at 25% now, that would limit any new purchases from
From
being
rent.
able to lease over the 30% cap.
Yeah, and that's, I think there are discussion on that what kind of impact that's going to have on the, investment people that want to make invest here. But I want to remind everybody we are, ownership community and not a rental community. We, the pride of ownership always is important, at least to me, because, I like to live in a community that people take pride in their, the units and their, upkeeping. And I don't have anything against the rental, don't get me wrong. But what I'm saying that the more the rental you have, the opportunity for some issues might come up also in the community. You
Yeah,
have to
and
be
it's
cognizant of.
also a balancing act, because if you get too many rentals, you can have problems with getting loans.
Yeah.
If you have too many rentals,
Yeah.
you can have problems with insurance. If you have too many rentals, you can actually devalue the property values by having too many rentals. So it's always a balancing act, and the fact that the state has set it at a 25% minimum, that's as low as we can go no matter what we do. And did we have some comments from, okay.
Not all transfers are the same. What happens if a unit that was being leased out, the owner of record dies and it's transferred via inheritance? Do we have any, it is a change in ownership, but is that a grandfathering? In other words, what I'm saying is if there's a change in ownership,
I don't know the answer to that. The one thing that may complicate that would be if it's going from an estate into the descendants, and that then it might be waived. Maybe we can have staff answer that question.
Good morning, directors. I honestly don't know.
Can you give your title for the television?
Sure. I'm Pamela Bashline. I'm the Community Services Manager.
Thank you.
I don't honestly know the answer to that question. I think it may need a legal eagle to look at it. I can give you my personal perspective that a change of ownership is a change of ownership, and so that new person would not be able to lease after the existing lease was expiring. But I don't know if council would say that's the case.
Yeah, because there's a possibility somebody passes away, the children are on the deed or on the estate, and they have some time frame where they have to, resolve all the estate. So possibly if they had a leasee in that unit at the time, they could stay until it was resolved with the estate. I'm just guessing, but again, that would be something that would happen when it happens.
okay, it's a loose end. We'll follow up later. Thank you.
And Moon?
Yeah, that has a significant impact because a lot of people who received that by inheritance, they are young, they may be not eligible to move in. So they either have to sell it or lease it. So whichever we set the policy, they're going to have a significant impact on it. Okay, that's my comment. My question is different. How about the part-time owner who lives here? they want to lease out the part-time, like 6 months or 3 months. Are they limited that to 25% or 30% of whatever we are setting up today? Well, not today, but trying to set it up.
Pamela?
There are some, there is a hardship exemption written into the policy for how to administer rentals once you reach the 30%. That is something that may come into play.
But we're talking with this about seasonal.
About
where-
seasonal residents, right. So when you have a rental, according to the policy that we haven't started to administer yet, you have 30, 60, 90 days, some time frame, narrow, to get another tenant in. And if you do not, then you go to the bottom of the waiting list. The waiting list may be 5 people, it may be 50 people. But you, as an existing landlord, have an opportunity to remodel the unit, because maybe you've had somebody in there for a long time, or make other changes, but it's all spelled out in that policy.
Now, how is it spelled out for snowbirds, for people that live here during the winter and live somewhere else during the summer, or vice versa?
Yeah, I don't believe that it calls out seasonal residents per se. I think the other language in the policy would come into play.
So they'd still fall in line with just regular leases, regular rentals?
Yes.
Even though they're doing it every year for 6 months of the year?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Moon?
To follow up, I'm in favor of keeping as it is instead of lowering to 25%. One reason, couple reasons. One is we just limited ADU. State has a problem with housing, so leasing it out is accommodating their need somewhat. Second one is like a seasonal owners. We have to make either decision. We're going to include them or putting them outside the limit. If we include them, and then and so I think we have to make a decision instead of just left out to the step. And whatever we decided, 25%, 30%, or as it is, we have to make sure or make a decision we're going to include them or keep them out of their number.
So we have to work on it with these different contingencies to try and address those possibilities. Ira?
You mentioned a 60 or 90-day time frame to remodel in between, but many remodels here take longer. And so is there accommodations for extensions on this policy if the remodeling takes 6 months versus the 3 months?
I don't believe that there's an accommodation, but I think that for remodeling, the time period is a little longer than what I quoted, the 30 to 90 days. So I think it is allowing up to 6 months for somebody remodeling.
Yeah,
Still
extensive
keeps
remodeling, just getting permit to take 2-3 months.
Yes.
So
That's a concern because many remodels here take a year or more, historically, for major remodeling, down to the studs type of thing, new plumbing, new electrical, all these kind of things. So that's one concern I have, to make some sort of accommodation for increasing the value and livability in that particular unit. And we're fighting against that. It would be at odds with ourselves, is my concern.
I think there is a provision that people that takes longer, they can request extension from the, the MNC or,
There's
after
extensions for the construction, but that doesn't necessarily apply to the lease. You can get 180 days originally, and then you can get another 180-day extension, so it is for a full year.
Yeah, but what I'm
But-
saying that the
but
two
it's-
unit doesn't talk to each other, that if they extend, it applies to the other side, or, there's a wall in between? Why?
And Ralph, you had a comment?
Yeah, somebody, I think Moon mentioned short-term rentals. Isn't there a prohibition against short-term rentals at least, or what is the minimum allowable?
30 days.
30 days.
30 days?
Pardon me?
Basically, this seems like it's something that we need to set up some type of a workshop for, to set up an outline of all of our concerns, because just handing it to staff without us actually setting up perimeters, I think would be futile. So when Mark gets back, maybe we'll set up some type of ad hoc committee to go over the lease agreements and the percentages and the special exceptions to that. Sound good to everybody?
I'm in favor of that.
Okay.
Also, I think that 30 days, there was at one time, I don't know where it went, the discussion about Airbnb, that some people were interested in pushing for the Airbnb. Is that approved in anywhere within our community? Are you
No,
aware of that they can do Airbnb?
I think there are people that still advertise on Airbnb, but
Yeah,
they
that's-
must agree to all of our other conditions. It can't be shorter than 30 days, and whatever other restrictions we have, they have to adhere to that. It's just a platform to get somebody's attention that there is lodging available in this community for X dollars.
Okay.
Moon?
I really don't like to see the Airbnb here.
That'll be
Whatever
something we
do,
can discuss
gotta
at the workshop.
Make sure they cannot come in that way. Second one is a lot of potential resident, they don't want to buy it right away. They come in, they lease out 1 year, 2 year, figure it out, and then they buy. So we have to consider them. Not all our renters gonna be permanent renters. We have to put that in account and give them some kind of room to figure out our community before they really commit by the. I made a lot of mistakes in my situation. I bought this. No, I want to buy another one. I keep doing that. But if I had the time that I leased out and look at it and do that, but I see a lot of my friends, they lease out 1 year, 2 year, or they become seasonal resident as a renter, and then a year, 2 year, they buy it in. So we have to put them in our account.
Okay. So we'll get that set up after Mark comes back. Everybody in favor of setting up some type of ad hoc committee? Okay, everybody in favor. So we'll look into that. We have now our third mutual committee reports. Andy, Finance Committee?
We have some charts, but I don't know, Paul, we have charts that we're going to, we got it. I've not seen them on our screen. There we go, okay. What we're talking about here is the...
Andy,
Your mic?
turn the mic on.
What we're talking about here is the unaudited internal financial statements for the year ending December 31. So these are not the final statements. We have an audit, and these statements will be adjusted in a couple months, but they're pretty good. And I'd like to go through a series of slides to cover our performance from an internal reporting standpoint for the year. Slide number 1, you can see that for the reporting period of December 31, 2023, total revenue for third was roughly $45 million compared to expenses of about $44 million, resulting in net revenue of $1.3 million. That means revenue exceeded expenses. Okay? Move on to slide 2. No? The other part.
We're on slide 2.
We're on slide 2. It's already up.
It's up.
Okay. All right. Next slide. In finance, we watch the operating portion of our financial results. Our results include revenues and expenses that wind up ultimately in a reserve account. So we're focusing on here is the operating side of that. So it's a subset of the total that you were just shown. And that's why it's less. The operating fund, excuse me, shows a surplus of $745,000 through the reporting period. This chart shows how much of our revenue went into operations, with roughly $28.7 million coming from assessments and $2.5 million coming from non-assessment revenue. This is compared to operating expenditures of roughly $30.4 million that excludes depreciation, which is a non-cash outlay. The most significant variances from budget were attributable to, that's the end of that one. Let's go on to number 4. Okay. This is a breakdown of slide 3. The most significant variances from budget were attributable to employee compensation and related, roughly $1.1 million. And that was due primarily to the landscape and M&C departments having open positions that were budgeted. Impacted areas include grounds maintenance, irrigation, manor alterations. We're trying to recruit people for those open positions, and we've talked about it month after month how difficult it is, but we're trying different ways to get people to fill those spots. But in the interim, something has to give. And sometimes what we do is we go to outside services for it, or the services lag until we can get sufficient manpower to cover them. Grounds maintenance contracted shrub bed maintenance to outside vendors for the pruning weeding cycle as they continue to fill open positions. Investment income is favorable by about $723,000. The favorable variance resulted primarily from Treasury bills yielding a higher return than anticipated. We budgeted a return of 1.5%, and the investments have been averaging between 4 and 5%. So roughly in financial speak, 300 basis points favorable to us. So in roughly $30 million of investments, 3% of that was unbudgeted. It's an item you don't know what the Fed is going to do. In this case, the Fed really helped us out. It's continuing into 2024. We don't know when the party's going to end. We have budgeted more in 2024 for the higher rates. It's not 1.5%, we budgeted 3%. And we think, on average, that in 2024, we'll be at least on budget or above budget for it. But that being said, in 2023, it did give us almost $750,000 in favorable variance, which we needed. Moving on to fees and charges to residents, $533,000 favorable. This is an offset, really, but $882,000 of it was recoveries from backlog damage restoration claims that the third paid years ago, and it was determined that the responsibility was really the owner of the manor. And so we've gone back, and it's not an easy process, we've gone back and billed those owners, and we've recovered in 2023 $882,000. All cases with determination hearings in 2023 that were determined to be resident responsibility were accrued in 2023. In other words, counting matching principle, we handled it in 2023, we booked it in 2023. That doesn't mean we got the cash because it's a receivable. And so when we get that, it's just a balance sheet entry, but we've recorded the revenue as if we received it. Additionally, chargeable service revenue exceeded budget for water heater replacements. Moving on to insurance, $339,000 favorable. It resulted primarily from lower premiums at our 6/1/23 renewal than anticipated in budget preparation. You heard earlier from Dan Yost how volatile the insurance market is. And we're really at the mercy of the market, although we can do some things to mitigate our costs, and we're doing it. So that's something to watch in the future. We're hoping that nature doesn't go against us and cause some unfavorable events that will result in everyone's rates going up. And when that happens, we pay even if we're not involved in it. If there's wildfires in Northern California, we're going to pay for it. Moving on to utilities and telephone, $194,000 favorable. It resulted primarily from water due to rainfall and conservation efforts. Water conservation was 9% lower than budgeted in 2023. This variance was partially offset by electricity and trash due to higher rates than anticipated. Finally, for slide 4, I'm going to talk about outside services, which has an unfavorable variance of almost $2.5 million. The unfavorable variance primarily comes from M&C, maintenance and construction, and landscape due to more moisture intrusion events caused by rain than anticipated at the time of budget preparation. And I think everyone acknowledges we've had a lot more rain than anyone expected. Rainfall in 2023 was 69% higher than in recent years. Additionally, there was a higher number of plumbing leaks and stoppages than anticipated. More of these events occurred in 2023 compared to 2022. And 2022 was a guideline for the 2023 budget, so we don't know what we don't know. Landscape contracted shrub bed maintenance outside vendors as they continue to fill open positions. I mentioned that earlier. The key I want to mention here is that if you think you've got a leak, report it. We found that the cost, whoever bears it, the third or the owner, if you don't report the leaks promptly, it just gets worse. And if mold's involved, it's even more worse, if you can say that. So again, report leaks as soon as you find them. Let's move on to slide number 5. On this slide, we chart our non-assessment revenues earned to date by category and compare them to the current year's budget and the prior year's year-to-date actuals. Our largest revenue-generating categories on December 31, 2023 were resident maintenance fees, investment income, and sales and leasing fees. Non-assessment revenues totaled roughly $3.6 million through the reporting period. And I've reported already earlier about the investment income being favorable, but we're also getting more on resident maintenance fees, and a lot of this is wear and tear due to the weather. So really tough to predict that. So we usually don't expect a big budget variance, and this year we got it, but don't count on it for 2024. All right, let's move on to slide number 6. On this slide, we chart our expenses to date by category and compare them to current year's budget and last year's year-to-date actual. Our largest expense categories in 2023 were employee compensation and related, outside services, and insurance. Expenses totaled $43.7 million through reporting period. And we've talked about a couple of these items. Let's go on to slide number 7. Non-operating fund balance at the end of the year was roughly $33.1 million. Year-to-date contribution and interest were $14.8 million, while year-to-date expenditures were $13.2 million. This is a balance sheet account, really, but what that tells us is our revenues are exceeding our expenses for now. Expenses can be lumpy, and we're building our balances. So in 2023, we built these balance sheet balances for reserves, and that's good. Let's go on to slide number 8. We compare the non-operating fund balances to historical fund balances for the past 5 years on this chart, and those have averaged roughly $30.2 million. The Third Mutual has been committed to supporting reserve requirements and having more contingency funds for unexpected events. So 2 ways: we're building our balances for normal replacement, and we're also building our balances for unexpected events to a point. We're also trying to balance that against keeping our assessments more predictable. In other words, no one likes surprises, so our unexpected account balances help us to smooth those unforeseen items. Let's move on to slide 9. This slide shows resale history from 2021 to 2023. Through the end of the year, resales totaled 367, which is 48 resales lower than the prior year at the same time period, and I think everyone knows why. The average year-to-date resale price for Third was $558,000, which is $34,000 higher than the prior year for the same period. And that concludes my slide presentation. The next thing we want to talk about, the Third Finance Committee report. We did meet, and we talked about the 2023 variance in some detail. For people that are interested in these financial kind of things, I can't emphasize strongly enough how important it would be for you for information to attend our Finance Committee hearings. We cover the results in much more detail, and we give you a chance to answer questions. And again, I recommend you come to the Finance Committee meetings to see if you have any questions about details. The committee last met on February 6th of this year. The next meeting is April 2nd at 1:30 p.m. in the boardroom, and also as a virtual meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. And Moon, you have a question for Andy? Yeah,
Go ahead.
I have a couple of things. I'm sorry. For the slide, thank you. Slide number 4. So you look at the employee compensation is about $1 million. Outside the service is about $2.5 million. Basically, what we used for the manpower. And so if we are in favor of employee compensation of giving money to the employee, we giving less, $1 million, and then we giving $2.5 million outside service. So somehow, as a board or the VMS or whatever we are managing, we have to do better job on this somehow.
Okay, let me comment on that. Normally, you're going to pay one way or another. Let me phrase it that way. If you need to do a service, normally have in-house staff to do it, and you don't have them available, you have to go outside. And in most cases, that means you pay more because there's a profit motive for the outsiders, and there's also market forces. And you could be coming in when everybody wants that kind of service, and you're going to pay for it. So that's one dynamic. It's not a wash. Anytime you go to outside services, usually you're going to pay more for the same service. That being said, there's some efficiencies to going outside. For example, if you only do a little of stuff a year, are you going to staff up full-time for something that's not a full-time thing? In other words, and the other thing is people specialize. For example, in the tree trimming, we went to an outside tree trimming service versus in-house. That service had latest equipment, and They do trees all the time, economies of scale, and so far we found that the outside service is actually more preferable in that case. So it's not really clean. The second thing I wanted to mention is this is further not a wash because of all the moisture intrusion. Our staff, we don't have the staff to handle all this moisture intrusion from this flood of rain. So again, rain affects everybody. You've got a leak, and you go and you want to get somebody to fix the leak. Everybody else in the South County wants their leaks fixed. It raises the cost, so you're stuck. It's an act of nature, and part of the variance for outside services is due to the fact that we've gotten hit by so much rain. So I don't know what to say. I like rain. I'm not anti-rain, but
Yeah.
nothing is free.
Yeah. I'm not saying who did it right, who did it wrong, whatever we are saying. As to the mutual, we need to look at this issue, manpower issue, or that outside service issue. And I raised my voice one time here. Resident does not have any choice for outside service. When they bring it in, they bring it in. So residents are very unhappy with that, and then we spending 2.5 million and make a resident happy or unhappy. So we need to look at it in whole thing. Somehow we got to do better job. That was my point. Second issue here is fee and charges to resident is almost $500,000. That is good for us. You said it's the green. But when you look at the resident, it's their tax. Same as increasing the HOA. They are paying it, right? So they are paying out of their pocket. They are paying it. So we need to bring it down as much as possible.
I
So
hardly
if we want to
concur.
have this
I agree.
more,
I
let's say
think
1 million, 2 million, that money have to come up from resident.
you know where we can do it better, where we can do it more efficiently because of a variety of things that I mentioned. We should try to help out our residents. But I can tell you from a scheduling standpoint, if you lay in all these extra services that you can do, you've got your regular work, and then all of a sudden you have to do this and that beyond your normal mission, it screws up your normal mission. You get what I'm saying? So it's easy to talk about, keeping a lid on it, but it's contention. When you have people going after the same thing, it raises the price. And the scheduling is important. If you have to bring people in for overtime, it's another factor. And so our internal people here have basic stuff they have to do that they've committed to us in a contract. And so this extra stuff, while it's great and it helps everybody, there's a limit as to how much you can do. I can tell you, at finance, we're always looking at ways to improve revenue. It's not just about costs. It's a two-way street. I personally prefer raising revenues. Easier said than done. But you can know that we're trying to increase revenues without getting caught in a bind where we overcommit, which is terrible. When you overcommit, you disappoint everybody. So it's a balance, and we're working on it. And the M&C and landscape people can talk to that further if they wish. But I hope that answers in part what you're asking about.
Yeah, I think we made a resolution today. We voted for yes, decreasing whatever the fee we are imposing. I forgot what their cost was. So somehow $500,000 we are collecting from resident. If you want to do this, you pay me. You want to do this, you pay me. Or you pass the stop line, you pay me. Basically, same money coming from resident. I want to see that as little as possible.
But you have to take into consideration that it's a buffer. And with that buffer, if we didn't have that buffer, then we'd have to have special assessments if we went over. And so to budget a year ahead of time, we budget based on what we anticipate it's going to be, and it's not always going to be a $500,000 to the good. Sometimes it's going to be a $500,000 to the bad. And so to try and crunch it to the penny, we're going to have real difficulty. Wouldn't you agree, Andy?
Yeah, and again, I mentioned that from a scheduling standpoint, you've got your basic mission, and then you get all these add-ons. But that being said, if we have the manpower and time to do it, unless it's a very specialized thing, we ought to be able to give some benefit to our residents by doing it. I just want to point out in this particular item, the resident maintenance fee, resident maintenance fee, is that what you're talking about?
Fee and charge to resident, the third item, 1, 2, 3, third item about $500,000. Page 4.
Slide 4. The 649,000 favorable variance?
No, 533K. So we made.
Slide
Oh, I
4.
got you. Fees and charges.
Okay, meanwhile, let me ask a question or answer to
Yeah,
Jim's.
that includes
Okay, this we talk
882,000.
533 is a variance, not the total amount. Okay, whatever total amount was already in the budget. Okay, this is the year 2023, December 31st. Whole year, we collected more than budgeted, about $500,000. So that's what my concern is, that out of the resident pocket. So whatever we budgeted, we like to have this as little as possible. I like to see almost zero.
Wait, 1 second, I just want to answer. That number, includes $882,000 for damage restoration. If you back that out, it's the other way. The number goes the other way. 882,000 favorable is due to damage restoration. If the net of all of that is $500,000, then we're roughly 300,000 under budget revenue-wise. We didn't collect enough per the budget. So keep that in mind. 800, almost 900,000 is for damage restoration. Whole different subject.
And Andy,
Go
didn't
ahead.
you mention that line also contains items like water heater replacements and so on that you're going to have to pay for no matter what, whether it's internal or external? So there's a lot of services, whether it be fixing a toilet or whatnot. Those services, instead of calling an outside plumber, they call the inside plumber. So there's a lot of things on that line that you'd actually want more of, not less of.
Okay. Let me say this. Okay, if I want to fix something, I need to I have to pay for it, okay? We all budgeted for year 2023. That fee is already budgeted already in it, okay? This year, somehow, we collected $500,000 more, okay? So we are not asking residents to do this for free. It is already budgeted already, let's say $100 they paid. But they are paying this year a little bit more, total whole year, about $500,000 more we collected. So what I'm saying is, at the third mutual, already budgeted, we should bring it that budget over collection, I would say, as little as possible. Because they're already budgeted, they paid, but this year they're paying more somehow. Why?
Well, what you aren't taking, and Andy said, is we collected $800,000 for restoration from things that we paid out. Had we not collected that $800,000, it would be a negative $300,000 instead of a positive $500,000. We couldn't anticipate what we were going to collect from residents that it was their responsibility for the water intrusion, and that they are basically just paying back the mutual for what should have been charged to them in the first place. And we're playing all this catch-up, going through all of these, collecting back the money that the association already paid. We budgeted based on what we paid out we didn't know what we were going to receive in basically accounts receivable from the members that were held responsible for the water intrusion, that we collected the money back from what we had already paid out. Correct, Andy?
Yeah, that's correct. Well, like you said, 882,000 netted against the 532 favorable, it's about 300,000 unfavorable in that total category. There's other stuff in there, but that's not the reason, you know. But I get your drift. What are we paying for, you know, in terms of,
So
you know,
when you
maybe
look
that's an
at,
education thing.
when you
Maybe-
look, oh, excuse me, may I?
Go ahead.
Please. Okay, when you look at page 1, we have a surplus almost 1 million last year. Right?
Yeah.
Expense and the revenue and the expense. That's a very simple chart this is. We have a 1 million over budget, you know, we had saved, or I cannot say saved, we collected more than 1 million than what we needed, right? So what I'm saying is, when you look at this positive thing from resident fee, that is not positive. That is squeezing resident. That is my point. Okay.
Can we have somebody from staff come up and explain a little bit
No,
here?
I think, oh, you want to say it? Go ahead.
So, and I do apologize. So if you can maybe briefly remind me what the question is?
It was the 500,000 that it shows in excess for 2023 as of December 31st.
Sure.
But that 500,000, basically, Moon says that money should have been left in the members' pockets, but we didn't know we were going to have that money until after we collected from all the water intrusions, where it was assessed back to the member to collect the funds that we distributed to make all those repairs prior to ascertaining whose responsibility it was.
Correct. So great recap. So you did a great job. So during the budgetary season, clearly we do the best job that we can with regards to the operating fund, the reserve funds, and the contingencies, right? The restricted funds. Throughout the year, we develop programs to meet those needs, and we try to identify whether it's going to be staff or whether it's going to be outside services who are going to be able to accomplish those tasks. We only have a certain number of staff who are able to do it, so of course we bring in outside services to supplement when we are missing individuals. Specifically for reserves, if there's going to be instances where we have some favorableness at the end of the year, meaning make up a number, we budgeted $1 million and we came in with $500,000 more than necessary, that money stays in the residents' pockets, right? So that's going to offset future expenditures. So rather than maybe collecting, pick a number, $100 next month, so next year we're going to go ahead and collect $90. So it all stays in your pockets. You can make the argument that we collected too much, right? So I can understand that because there's a surplus at the end of the year, but we do the best we can in terms of meeting the needs and meeting all the programs throughout the year. Throughout every single month, we provide financial statements to give you the indication in terms of where we're at the end of every moment, and we try to make changes throughout the year to accommodate.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Actually, this issue should not be directed to the finance department or that. This is directed to all of our board because we have annually more than 1 million positive from the HOA, and then we are still squeezing residents out of a quote unquote fee or charge, whatever, squeezing another 500 grand. And so if we are negative, you know, we want to squeeze more out of a resident, but we are already positive and then we're still squeezing more, 500 grand more. So I think not the finance department job, whatever we are charging fee and all that, that department have to do something so it doesn't go 500 grand. I want that coming down to lower. Okay, let's just set that, unless you have something other urgent to say about this. I have another questions.
Well, Ralph has had his hand up for a while. Let's let him get a chance.
I'm going to go back to something that you indicated in the last meeting. And in that, I'm thinking we're getting confused here as far as who is responsible for what. There are certain things that are covered under our budget that are not part of what the village normally, well, what's under the budget is what the village normally does, but if somebody wants something else, that's an extra service that is charged. And I think you need to distinguish between that. We can't, just because we have money left over, all of a sudden expand what we're going to give them for free. I think that's what we're confusing here.
No, I'm not going to say specific, water intrusion, painting job, paving, or landscape. I'm not talking about any specific items. What I'm saying is, in general, Third Mutual, we already have a budgeted, whatever finance department did an excellent job. We have a more than 1 million positive for year 2023. When you look at it, among 1 million, half of them are extra squeezing fee from resident. So that's what I look at it.
That's
So
inaccurate.
I like to see that the fee and all that somehow whoever that department belonged to and adjusted it so it doesn't come up with another 500, another million. Then if a finance department see that resident charge 1 million, oh, we did a great job. I think we did a great disservice to the resident.
And that's your opinion, but the reality is we don't have a crystal ball knowing how much we're going to collect from water intrusion events over the 2.5-year period where the ball was dropped because they made that position a non-essential position. And so we're playing catch up, and as we play catch up, we're getting these additional revenues which basically are just paying us back from the past years where we put the money out. So the budget is based on the years prior to go forward on the budget. So the fact that you keep looking at this 500,000 and say you want to give it back to the residents or not take it from them, we didn't have a crystal ball to know that we were going to collect $882,000 from members who was their responsibility for the water intrusions. You can't budget based on what might happen. You can only budget on the past. And then that money is carried forward so that we don't have to raise our monthly in the next year because it supplements the next year, and we budget with that extra money in mind to not raise the monthly. So we already are taking care of the members by passing that forward to not raise the monthly assessment. Go ahead, Riza.
I think the basic question that Dr. Moon asking is, what do we do with the surplus? And there's a simple answer. I think, rather than going around and discussing where we put the surplus and how it impact the members' input or assessment. That's, I think if you answer that, that would answer the question, I guess.
If I may. So we treat them differently. So if it's within the operating fund, typically what happens is we take the operating surplus and we move it over to your contingency funds.
Okay.
So the board we will oftentimes make a recommendation as soon as the audit is complete. If we come up and say there's going to be, after audit adjustments, $300,000 of available funds, staff will make the recommendation to move it over to your disaster fund or some other fund where we feel it's appropriate. But ultimately, it's the board's determination whether you're going to put that into the disaster, the unappropriate expenditure fund, or reserves. With regards to your reserves, if there's an amount that was unused, if we build more than we spent during the course of the year, that money stays in your overall, we'll call it your savings account, to apply towards future expenditures. Stealing his words, it'll offset how much you're going to be collecting from the residents in the subsequent years. But of course, you're trying to build up your reserves over time.
I think the continuous question is that how much that will impact the operating expenses in the following year if you have surplus. It goes to contingency fund. Is there any part of it goes to the operating cost which reduces the, potentially might reduce the assessment? because you are not going to write a check $50 or $20 per members.
Of course.
So it's going to be operating expenses which impact the assessment. Any of those surpluses will impact the operational costs, which impact the assessment in the following year.
There is an opportunity to use those surplus funds to offset future expenditures, operating surplus. There's pros and cons to doing that, and we'll discuss them during the budget season. Sometimes if you were to take that surplus that you had in 1 year and use it to, forgive me for using the word, but artificially lower future assessments, then you're going to turn into your assessments are going to go up and down, right? So our job is to hopefully mitigate sharp increases.
I think during the finance meeting for the budgeting next year, that's the question that are going to be asked, surplus, how it was, obligated to different areas and all of that, which answers the budgeting for the following year, because you don't recognize surplus to the end of the year and you're planning for the next year, and that's how it's going to be impacted. The current year is not going to be impacted by surplus.
Rizal, I'm surprised the finance committee doesn't do any budget. So I thought the finance committee does some impact on something to do with the budget, but it wasn't. So I was very surprised to learn that. May I ask a couple of questions, Steve? Okay, in general, as a family, I want to have money left over. All right, over. So if I make 100 grand, I spend about 50 grand, I save 100. I did a great job, right? But as a corporation, as an institution, you collected whatever million, and then you spend only $500,000. You did a very poor job, right? You didn't predict that very well. Or you spend $1 million, collect $1 million, you spend $2 million, you didn't do a good job. So what percentage is your good job margin for finance?
Yeah, excellent question. When we, working through the board, when we make recommendations for your annual budgets, we intentionally collect dollars amounts to go into your savings account, right? And when I say savings account, I'm referring to your disaster funds and your expenditure funds. We budget to a zero. Like, we want to spend every amount of money that we collect because we're trying to not take any more money from the residents as possible. But there's part of it, once again, that you're trying to put into savings account. Exactly using your example, for the same reason, because you're going to have things that pop up. Insurance is going to go up. We're going to be surprised in some years by shocking amounts of insurance increases. We're going to be surprised, unfortunately, by bad weather that destroys your pipes, your roofs, or so on and so forth. So you have that savings account because you don't want to budget for those disasters every single year. So you build up in increments a small dollar amount to fund those savings accounts, no different than your personal life, right? And the question is, what's the threshold in terms of over or under to budget? We really should be nailing the budget every single year, but life happens. We get hit with unpredictable things, right? We're doing our best to hire individuals, but sometimes we are forced to bring people from the outside to supplement once again. But
yeah. So we do have a contingency budget.
Correct.
We do have a cushion. So I think what I understand, we have about 20-some million cushion, right? In the third mutual, right?
You have a reserve. You have
we have cushion, right?
That's not a cushion. We have a 30-year plan to spend that money. Mm-hmm. So Civil Code requires us to have this plan in place. So we have specific projects that we are dog-earing those monies for.
Yeah. I just want to remind that our board members here, so the resident whatever fee, $500,000 is not great thing. Okay, I just want to put that idea in your mind, but I don't know I was successful or wasn't successful. Okay, thank you. My second question I have here is page 6, I think. Let me see. Oh, page 8. I'm sorry, my eyes. Page 8, when the graph you look at it, somehow replacement fund every year goes up. all other remains pretty much similar, right? So are we doing anything for planning and budgeting for replacement budget?
It's all part of the reserves, but just so we clear some things up, the disaster fund that we're trying to build back up, the reason we're trying to build it back up is we borrowed from it, if you want to use that term, when our insurance rates went up so high, because we could only raise our assessment to a certain percentage, and it didn't cover what our insurance costs were. So we borrowed money from our disaster fund and really drained it down quite a bit. And that's what we're building back up again. Is that
Sure, and on top of
accurate?
that, from the reserves perspective, we, again, sticking with that 30-year plan, we're planning for a 3% increase every single year, and we're trying to meet that dollar amount through contributions from the residents. So you should fully anticipate it's going to go up every single year. But with regards to your disaster fund, your unappropriated expenditure fund, we look at historically how much money you've been pulling from that over time, and we're trying to keep it, again, we staff are trying to keep it to a healthy savings account, but not absurd, right? So as long as we feel that our recommendation is being met, then ultimately it's at the board's discretion to increase or pull from it as needed.
Yeah.
And our rating on our reserve funds, we get a better rating based on the fact that we do continual maintenance. Otherwise, our percentage of funds would be inadequate in most HOAs.
Sure.
Yeah,
So we're
well,
we're teetering right on that balancing point for having adequate reserves for a community this large.
Yeah, thank you for the answers, but I think the answer is somewhat different than what I expected or what my question was. So the building here is a 50, 60, 70 years old building and not getting younger. So we need to come up with a more replacement fund or this or that. Is that the replacement fund is a reserve fund? Or replacement fund for building maintenance or that? I made a completely misunderstood them.
Yeah.
Is that what kind of fund is a replacement fund? What is it?
It's your reserve fund.
Reserve fund?
Yes.
Okay.
There-
Then I
there's-
got completely
Okay.
out of the line.
Okay, Ralph, you have something else?
Every year, there's a reserve study revision. And if you look at the end result of it, there's a graph, and there's a red area, a yellow area, and a green area, depending where we are. We are now in the lower part of the yellow zone. If we get hit with another bad year, that's going to drop even closer to the red zone. What we're trying to do with this little excess is build this back up where it was. It really should be a little higher. We want to stay out of this danger zone.
Yeah, somehow, but we are marginally qualified in that mean lower, but still we are much better than United. I understand.
We
You
don't
don't
want to
wanna
discuss United's finances here. And if we can, I think we've kind of beat the dead horse here. If we can go ahead and move on.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll be moving on to my report, the Architectural Controls and Standards Committee. The three things that we passed today and the one in the consent calendar were what we had at the Architectural Controls and Standard. Further discussion at Architectural Controls and Standards is elimination of Standard 8, porch lift elevators. We're still waiting on legal opinion on that, if we even have to have that standard. Proposed standard 41B, solar panels, 3-story buildings. That's being worked on in future agendas. Proposed standard 41C, solar panels, carports, patio covers. That's being researched and also a future agenda item. And then also proposed standards for flooring guidelines for second and third floors. If somebody's putting in a hard surface on a second or third floor, they need to meet noise abatement requirements, and that's being worked on. The date of our next meeting will be March 11th, 2024 at 1:30 p.m. And now moving on to the report of Maintenance and Construction Committee. They last met on January 8th. That meeting was discussed and report given in the January board meeting. Their next meeting is March 4th, 2024 at 1:30 p.m. And now we're into item 13D, report of the Landscape Committee. Director Lewis, take it away.
Thank you, Director Cook. So, what date did we meet? The Landscape Committee met on Thursday, February 4th, right here in the boardroom. Basically, it was a standard type of a meeting, not too much special happened. The tree removal requests, which were addressed earlier. We approved some turf reductions from people that had wanted some turf removed around their units, so that got delayed for a variety of reasons last year, mostly to catch up on tickets. And there was just an update on some ongoing projects. I do want to mention that since trees are always a big issue here in the village, we have our urban forest management plan online for you to look at and see everything about what we do with trees. The tree report contains why we would take out a tree, why we would put in a tree, what kind of tree we would put in, the care of trees, and so on. And this is to take us 50 years into the future with better trees, better management for this particular area. Our next meeting is Thursday, March 7th at 9:30 right here in the boardroom.
Thank you. On to item 13E. Director Zalen, you have a report from the January 25th meeting of the
Yes,
Water
I do.
Conservation?
Yes, I do. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, the committee met on January 25. The guests were Dennis Cafferty, the general manager of El Toro Water District, Kay Haven, the manager of our local filtration facility, and other honored guests. Dennis gave us a very detailed and informative outline of water supply conditions and opportunities. I intended to offer a detailed list of water-saving protocols, procedures that could save quite a lot of water. It was drafted with a goal of distribution at a time when we were looking down the barrel of yet another drought. Our snow cap at the time was about 25% of normal. But surprise, we've been since visited by a series of atmospheric rivers that have been punishing us with much more water than we ever wanted, or worse, could possibly use. Our reservoirs are filling up. Our ground cannot absorb all the rain, with the result that in the best of circumstances, it runs into the ocean, and in the worst case, it creates mudslides. Under the circumstances, a listing of water-saving techniques distributed to the members is likely to now go over like a lead balloon. So we will hold off on offering this list at least until the rain begins to let up. The next meeting is scheduled for April 25th in the boardroom, and that concludes my report.
Thank you, Director Zalen. And we move on to item 13F, report of the Resident Policy and Compliance Committee. Director Prince.
Thank you. The committee last met on Tuesday, January 23rd. During that meeting, the committee discussed the additional dwelling unit policy that the board discussed earlier during the meeting. We also discussed thirds, co-occupants, and caregiver policies, our traffic rules and regulations, our temporary storage container policy, and our various disciplinary notices to see if any changes are appropriate. The committee will next meet on Tuesday, February 27th at 9:30 here in the boardroom. We plan to discuss our disciplinary letters and our temporary storage container policy. The compliance team will also provide an overview of our member disciplinary process and share for discussion our harassment, hate, and nuisance policies. And that ends my discussion.
Thank you. And your next meeting is February 27th, is that
Correct.
correct? Moving on to item 14A, GRF Community Activities Committee. Andy, go ahead with that.
Yeah, the committee last met on February 8th, and it was a very lively meeting. We talked about the new clubhouse. We talked about Clubhouse 1 being shut down beginning in March. And as Shaban said earlier in this meeting, 100% of the activities that were using Clubhouse 1 were relocated to other venues. There still is an issue with the archery and the shuffleboard, but they're working on something for them. I just want to point out that not all activities are shut down. For example, bocce and a thing called petanque. Petanque is a form of bocce. That particular part of the campus is going to remain open. They got assurances from the bocce people that they won't interfere with the contractors going to and fro using the back lot. So if people think the whole clubhouse is shut down, but they see the bocce courts operating, it's because an accommodation was worked out where bocce was compatible with the efforts going on there. But everything else has been moved. The other thing I want to mention is that the clubhouse operating rules were revised in November and fully put into implementation. So GRF clubhouse operating rules are brand new, and they've changed in many cases. And if people are interested in that, they should contact Allison Grilio about getting an updated version of that. The next meeting for the committee is March 14th at 1:30 p.m. in the boardroom, and then it's a virtual meeting.
Thank you, Andy. Moving on to 14B, GRF Mobility and Vehicles Committee. Director Yun.
We met February 7th, and then there was a report of ridership of bus. Has not been changed much. And then they were talking about the Laguna Woods City program for the commute and the taxi program, and how we're going to incorporate, and they're trying to save some money for us, and there was some heated discussion. And then also we approved a couple, the security vehicle. To my surprise, very expensive, but we approved it. And the next meeting is May 1st. Thank you.
Thank you. And moving on, GRF Maintenance Construction. That met on February 14th. Director Reinhardt was excused absence today. Does somebody else from GRF Maintenance Construction Committee have anything to report from the February 14th meeting? Ralph?
I stuck my nose into that one. What was covered was a broadband heating and HVAC update, and also a question center gates and fencing was talked about. Probably the most interesting thing was the clubhouse two pool deck options. Discussed several things, either redoing the concrete as it is or recovering the existing material. But there was a lot of talk about actually using pavers designed for that on a pool deck. And they're a little more expensive, but they last a lot longer, and repair is a lot simpler. So there's a lot of emphasis on that, and we're going to look deeper into that. And then the last item was a project, clubhouse project update. They talked about several things, including Clubhouse 1, which our CEO covered very well this morning, so there's no point in repeating on that. Next meeting is March
April 10th.
A couple days after I'm gone anyway. So I won't be there.
Okay. And moving on to item D, Space Planning Ad Hoc Committee. Andy?
Okay, the committee last met on January 31st of this year. And the focus of the committee in this particular meeting, an initial meeting, was the guiding principles. There's so much detail and so many different permutations of things. We're focusing on the major objectives, guiding principles. That's what we're trying to define and stick to that. Otherwise, everybody has ideas. I'd like to point out that M&C Director Gomez made a presentation and said that this thing has been studied since 2011. Incredible. Time is money, and the meter's running, and I just truly hope we can get this thing resolved. That being said, we shouldn't make a bad decision just because of time. We should make the right decision, but we need to act. And the next meeting of the committee, and everyone's invited, is March 6, 2024 at 1:30 p.m. in the boardroom.
Okay, thank you, Andy. On to item E, GRF Landscape Committee, Director Lewis.
Yes, so the committee last met on February 14th here in the boardroom, and basically it was a fairly quick meeting. It was just a matter of there's a continued movement forward on the redesign and update of 9 of the entry gates to modernize them and use water-wise plantings in a more modern design. And that was pretty much the entire meeting. So the next meeting will be, I'm not sure, in about 3 months after that. So
It shows it's scheduled for May 8th at
May 8th.
1:30 p.m.
Yeah. Okay, and that's
Okay.
it.
Next, item F, Disaster Preparedness Task Force, Director Park.
Yes, the task force committee meeting was January 30th in this boardroom, 9:30 a.m. In that meeting, we discussed a lot of items. However, the committee urged people, residents, participate into the disaster preparedness task force meeting and also training. So we need a lot of people participate in that. And also discuss antenna installing at the Clubhouse 3. It's been more than 6 months. It's a simple installation. So I raised a little bit of my voice to, finish up that kind of a job quick. And also Clubhouse 3 coordinator Grace Stencil announced March 15, we have a shelter in place at Clubhouse 3. So that's a lot of people hope to participate in that. And next, the DPTF meeting scheduled on March 26. Thank you.
Thank you. And going on with you, item G, the report on the Laguna Woods traffic hearings.
Yes, traffic hearing was held January 17, right after our board meeting, 9 a.m. That board was comprised of GRF, Third, United, and Towers, 4 members. In the traffic hearing, 7 violations were heard and reviewed and voted as follows. 1 violation was dismissed because the clutter violation at the RV parking was not a clutter violation. As 2, speed violation was guilty and fine. 2, failure stop, guilty and fine. 1, no parking zone was guilty and fine. 1, abandoned vehicle, fine $25, but no further action required at that time because somehow it's been long-term either vacation or illness involved in. So I have, at this time, I like to let our third residents know that these matters are your own benefit. First, for long-term vacation or illness, please call and notify security office for the individual status so that you don't get the abandoned vehicle violation. And the second item is for the stop sign violation is the most violation I observed so far. I'd like to urge our resident, stop at the stop sign. That includes myself as well. Stop at the stop sign or stop at white line. Stop completely and then move forward your destination. Please do not find $50 for nothing. That's my warning or perhaps a plea. Next traffic hearing is tomorrow here at the board meeting at 9 a.m. Thank you.
Okay, and continuing on with Director Park?
Yes.
Information Technology Advisory Committee.
Yes, luckily I got the transcript from Mark about the ITAC, Information Technology Advisory Committee. I'll just read what he sent to me, so.
So you don't disclose anything from the
This committee, known as ITAC, is overseeing the development and implementation of the new village-wide computer system. It will be implementing a dynamic 365, D365, which is Microsoft-based, cloud-based application developed to support large organizations. The first phase of D365 implementation will focus on our financial functions and activities. Most of the individual functions are being tested, data migration process are being developed and confirmed. The advisory committee is working closely with IT to review the remaining tasks to come up with an accurate go-live date for the first phase. We hope to have that for the next month the committee report. However, I'd like to add one more thing. On this ITAC advisory committee, original plan was May 1st was the go live plan. But unfortunately, we do have some slack on the UAT, user application test, being delayed, so we can go live at the May 1st. So the next meeting, we suppose come up with a reasonable time for go live. At this go live meeting, the application is only for finances, not for any other department. It will be another hurdle we have to go through this other department. So next closed meeting is on February 23rd. Thank you. That's my report.
And item J, the following GRF committees have not met since last third board meeting of January 16th. They're all listed here. We go to item 15, future agenda items. All matters listed under future agenda items are resolutions that may be on a 28-day public review or items for a future board meeting. No action will be taken by the board on these agenda items at this meeting. The board will take action on these items at a future board meeting. The additional dwelling unit, ADU policy, we voted on today to put it on the 28-day notice, and so that will be taken care of at the next board meeting. We're now to item 16, director's comments. We'll start with Park, SK
Yes.
Park.
I'd like to make one comment regarding our reserve fund. We are saying we are better than United. Please, our reserve fund for 2024, 34.4%. We're United, 35.5%. So we are not any better. Please, let's building those reserve fund up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Park. And going on,
Number talks better. I was wrong. Thank you.
okay, Ira,
No further comments, thanks.
Ralph?
Can you come back to me later? Come back to me at the end.
Okay. Riza?
No comment, thank you.
Andy?
No comment.
Chris? No comment. Okay, Ralph?
Okay, I'll use this to publicly say goodbye because any other meetings I will be in or be closed. But I've enjoyed serving on the board. And I want to say to all the third board members that might be listening in, you've got a very, very good board at this point. I think it's going to be better when I leave, but that's beside the point. You have a good board. They're working actively. They really want to make a good place for you. I, for one, will support this board even long after I'm gone. Thank you so much. I've enjoyed it.
Thank you, Ralph.
See you around. Bye.
I like to propose,
You will be missed.
Oh, and Jules, they're out in
Yeah,
Zoom land. Do you have any comments?
Yes, I do. I'd like to say again, join everybody in thanking Ralph. He's been a terrific board member and we will miss him. I thought we had agreed over a year ago to stop calling each other director this or vice president that, and just call each other by our given names. Referring to ourselves in a formal manner creates an unnecessary separation from the rest of the members. It gives the false impression that there's something special about being on the board. But we're just a group of local neighbors come together to make decisions in the best interest of the membership. So I urge us to let our hair down, and when we refer to somebody, don't call me Director Zalin, just call me Jules or something else.
As we're going through the process, though, when we are reading from the agenda, when it says Director Reinhardt or Director Janoian, it's hard to plug in the first name when it's already written that way. Maybe we can get it written where it's only the first name.
Jules, some of us are not blessed with a lot of hair to put down, so remember that.
Okay.
I'm sorry for talking slowly. I'm still recovering from my brain zapping.
Okay,
And that's the
thank you.
end of my comments. Thank you.
And I have no further comments. We will recess and reconvene in executive session at 12 o'clock.
I wish you were